Welcome back. Wow. The last half hour was a complete surprise, I swear to you. Honest to God, I didn't know that the president of the community of Madrid was going to come and visit me in the last half hour. It was a surprise, and my friends here, aquí en el estudio, mis amigos, entre comillas, they didn't tell me that I was going to have a surprise. And for half an hour, I had to switch. I had to change from being. Fijaos, uso el gerundio después de from. I had to change from being. En castellano dirías, tuve que cambiar de ser. You use the infinitive in Spanish, but in English we don't use the infinitive. We use the ing gerund. I had to change or switch from being an English teacher, which is the only thing I know how to do, to being a master professional interviewer. And the first interview in my life I had to do on television was the president of the community of Madrid, Esperanza Aguirre. I had never met her before. And when she walked in the door, I said, my God, that's Esperanza Aguirre. And I had to sit down but it was interesting. Her English is impeccable, almost. Between you and me, she made 2 mistakes during the 30 minutes. That's not bad. Her level is similar to what you find among professionals, businessmen, businesswomen, and politicians, diplomats in Scandinavia, in Sweden, Norway, Denmark, and perhaps in the Netherlands, in Holland. So she has a very good level. In fact, I would place her among the 0.1% at the very top here in Spain. So, aprender, I mean, if you have her level, you have no problem in the rest of your life. So it was interesting. For the first time in my life, I thought I knew how to do everything. Yeah, I thought I was the expert on everything, and for the first time in my life, I had to interview somebody who was passive, and I had to be active. Okay, which is fine if I'm teaching English or driving a car. But for me, with Esperanza Aguirre, it was like flying a plane, and I've never done that before. But I think it worked out. Did you notice her mistakes? She made 2. As far que yo recuerde, ¿cómo se dice? Que yo recuerde. Que yo sepa. ¿Cómo se dice que yo sepa? ¿Cómo se dice en lo que a mí se refiere? Okay, 3 ways. All of them will begin with as far as. As far as I know, que yo sepa. As far as I'm concerned is en lo que a mí se refiere. And as far as I can remember, que yo recuerde. In English we say que yo pueda recordar. Usamos poder aquí. As far as I can remember, she made only 2 mistakes. Between you and me, don't tell anybody. Okay? Promise? Word of honor? Don't tell anybody. She made a mistake with the word carrera universitaria. In English, we don't say university career. Your career starts after you finish your studies. Before that, it's your degree plan or simply your studies. Or when I was at the university, when I was in college, or as the British say, when I was at uni. But you don't say during my career. Okay, during my career, no. But that's a common mistake. In order not to make that mistake, you need to have an extremely high level of English. She studied law. So she studied a degree in law, not a career. After she finished her studies, she had the option to begin a career in law. She decided to begin a career in public service. And she became a public servant in the Ministry of Culture, I believe, or in the Ministry of Tourism. And then she went on into the world of politics. But she didn't study a law career. She studied a law degree. Okay, well, now I'm back in my normal way as a teacher. I'm an English teacher. So sit down, stay still, come down to earth again after the last half hour. And let's learn some English, shall we? Are you ready? Yeah? Okay. List number 4, book 3. This book is for high advanced. Are you a high advanced person? Well, listen carefully. Nacieron en aquella aldea. They were born in that village. Fijaos en la pronunciación. Village. Se escribe village. pero se pronuncia village. La primera sílaba y la última sílaba, la segunda, hay dos sílabas, village, y dos sílabas riman en el sonido del vocal. Village. Como fill, llenar, pero con V. Village. Ok, village. A village es una aldea, un pueblecito muy pequeño. Porque si no es muy, muy pequeño, decimos town. And beyond 50 or 60,000 people, we start to say city. Okay. Nacieron. They were born. I was born. You were born. Where were you born? I was born in the United States. Were you born in the United States or in Spain? To be born. It comes from the verb to bear. Women bear children. Men don't bear children. Bueno, men bear children in a certain way because bear has two meanings, at least. Bear means dar a luz, but bear o parir, and bear also means soportar. Sometimes some of my students are unbearable. I can't bear some of my students. I can't stand some of my students. No aguanto. No puedo aguantar a algunos alumnos míos. Are you one of them? To bear. To bear. Unbearable is the word we use in English for insoportable. But so, to bear has two meanings, soportar, aguantar, and parir o dar a luz. So in English, when we say, I was born, it's because in English we don't have the verb nacer. The verb nacer doesn't exist in English. So, we have to change and say, fui parido o fui dado a luz, literalmente. I was born. My mother bore me. Women bear children, and I was one of them, so I was born. Okay? Bear, bore, born. Okay? And don't confuse it with the animal that you find in the forest, the bear. Okay, it's the same word, same pronunciation, but a different concept. Nacieron en aquella aldea. They were born in that village. They were born. Se criaron allí también. They grew up there too. To grow up. Most people grow up in the same place where they were born, especially here in Spain. There's not much social or professional mobility. So most people, when they are born in a certain location, they grow up in that place as well, to grow up. And they grow up not alone. They usually grow up with their parents, and their parents bring them up. Okay, so they are brought up or raised. We have three words. Fui criado en Texas, por ejemplo. I was brought up in Texas. Bueno, hay cuatro formas. Ojo, escuchad. I was brought up in Texas. I was raised in Texas. I was reared, curiosa palabra, but that's the most correct probably. I was reared in Texas. I grew up in Texas. Now, I was brought up, I was raised, I was reared is the passive voice. We understand there were one or two agents involved. In my case, my mother and my father, which is usually the case. You're brought up by your parents. Some people are brought up by a grandparent or by their grandparents or by a guardian, what you call here tutor. Okay? So people are brought up and they grow up. Where did you grow up? Did you grow up in the same town or the same city or the same village where you were born? Where did you grow up? I grew. Fijaos en la pronunciación. No es greu. I grew. Rima con tripulación. Crew. La tripulación de ese avión se creó en Montana. The crew of that plane grew up in Montana. Where did that crew grow up? That crew grew up in Montana, okay? Grew. Spanish people make a mistake usually in the pronunciation and say greu, like you say for tornillo, screw, screw, grew, crew, blew, el pasado de blow. To blow out, you blow out a candle. Yes, every day I blow out at least 5 candles. Yesterday I blew out 5 candles. To blow, blew, blown, grow, grew, grown. Okay, I grew up in Houston, Texas, and in Oklahoma. I was brought up in Houston, Texas, and in Oklahoma. I was brought up by my parents. I wasn't brought up by my grandparents or by my aunts and uncles or by a guardian or a foster family. I was brought up by my parents. I was brought up in a very comfortable, more or less, in a conservative environment. I was brought up. Ahora, nacieron en aquella aldea. They were brought up in that village. Se criaron allí también. They grew up there too. Okay? Are you ready? Él fue asesinado por los indios. He was killed by the Indians, the poor guy. You need to be careful. When the white man reached the New World, he first penetrated the Caribbean area. If you remember your good friend Christopher Columbus, who people think was originally from Genoa, a city on the Mediterranean coast in northern Italy, not too far from Milan and from Piedmont. Yes, he discovered America and he penetrated first the islands of the Caribbean and then Mexico. You remember Hernan Cortez. In English we say Hernando Cortez. He conquered Mexico and they penetrated into that area. Now in Mexico, when Cortez reached Mexico, there were approximately 15 million Indians in Mexico and Central America. So the population density was considerable. Now at the same time, when Christopher Columbus reached the New World in 1492, in the area that is today the United States and Canada, in that area, there were approximately 3 million Indians only. So it's important to understand this. When Columbus reached the New World, in the area that is Mexico and Central America, there were 15 million. The population density of the Indians was very high, or relatively high. But the area that was the United States and Canada, only 3 million. So the population density was very low. So when the Europeans began to move across to penetrate North America, the United States and Canada, they met very little resistance from the Indians. Hollywood, television, and the movies have romanticized this. Of course, it's a sad story. But the Indians were nomads and the population density was very sparse, which means that in Mexico, when Cortez reached the New World, he had to take into account the Indian population because it was very important. In the United States and Canada, the Indian population was not really something to be taken into account, a bit of a nuisance. So, when you say, él fue asesinado por los indios, it means that he was killed by the Indians. Probably, he was alone or he was with his family and they were not protected. Okay, because when they crossed, most of the white men who crossed the United States and Canada to reach the West Coast, especially during the period of the gold rush in California in 1849 and 1850, well, the Indians were not an important danger. They were not an important danger. Okay? So let's continue. Nacieron en aquella aldea. They were born in that village. Se criaron ahí también. Él fue asesinado por los indios. He was killed by the Indians por una flecha, an arrow in his back. Only one. Now, the best friend of my great-grandfather received 10 arrows in his back, and he survived. He was living in Central Texas, together with my great-grandfather, about 1870, 1875. And they were out collecting wood, working, surveying, haciendo mediciones, looking at the land in west central Texas, and they saw in the distance a small band of Indians, about 10, 11, 12 Comanches. That area of Texas is Comanche country. And, of course, the first thing they did was to turn and to try to jump on their horses and ride away to escape. There's only two men, my great-grandfather and his best friend, Tom Evans. I remember the name. And when they saw the Comanches about 200 or 300 meters away, they turned and started running straight for their horses. And Tom Evans, my great-grandfather's friend, jumped on his horse and successfully started riding away to ride. Montar a caballos, to ride horses. And he started riding away. My great-grandfather did the same thing. He jumped on his horse and he fell to the ground. And the horse, espantado, scared, ran away too. So my grandfather was alone on the ground with 11 or 12 Comanches coming. He decided to pull out his gun, his revolver, and to get behind a fallen tree, a log, and to get ready to protect himself. But it wasn't necessary. The Comanches didn't pay any attention to my great-grandfather. To pay attention. Recordar por enésima vez que la atención en inglés se paga, no se presta. In English, we pay attention. We don't lend attention. And the Indians, in this case, the Comanches, they didn't pay any attention to my great-grandfather. They ignored him completely. In English, to ignore is not necessarily the same as in Spanish. Ignorar en español tiene dos sentidos. It can be no prestar atención o no saber. If you ask somebody, who discovered America? I ignore it. Means you don't know. Lo ignoro. But in English, to ignore is not to pay attention. And the Comanches, they saw my great-grandfather completely helpless with one revolver against 11 or 12 Comanches. And they didn't pay any attention to him. They passed. And he didn't shoot. My great-grandfather didn't fire one single bullet. And the Indians passed. They wanted the two horses. They were not interested in my great-grandfather. And they continued. And they finally, ¿cómo se dice? Alcanzaron al otro. They finally caught up with the other man and 10 arrows into his back, and he fell to the ground. And the Comanches got his horse and the other horse, and they left. Now, my great-grandfather, he had nothing to do, so he started walking. He started walking back to the town, and he found his friend. And his friend was lying on the ground with 10 arrows in his back. He pulled every arrow. He pulled every arrow out of his friend's back. And he put his friend over his shoulder and walked another 3 miles, 5 kilometers, to the town, a town by the name of Oatmeal, which means I don't know, something to do with avena, una crema de avena. And he took him to Oatmeal, Texas, and put him down in the house of his family. And he was still alive. And they cured the wounds. And luckily, the arrow wounds were not deep, and the man survived. It took him 1 year to survive. But what happened was that Indians were usually not interested in the white man or in the European. They were more interested in the horses. And in this case, my grandfather was saved. My great-grandfather, I wouldn't be here right now teaching you English if the Comanches had been more interested in my great-grandfather than in the horses. So I'm lucky. I'm fortunate. Fortunate. La teu, fortune. Tiene sonido de che in inglés. Fortune. So I'm fortunate that the Comanche Indians needed some more horses that day and didn't need to kill my great-grandfather. Otherwise, de otra forma no estaría yo aquí. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. Okay. Nunca ha vuelto. Él nunca ha vuelto. He's never come back. Nunca nos has escrito. He's never written to us. Creo que se ha olvidado él de nosotros. I think he has forgotten. I think he has forgotten about us. Y ni siquiera nos dio las gracias. He didn't even thank us. When this program is over, do you thank me personally? My students never thank me. You know, when you go to a restaurant and you receive good service, do you leave a tip? Normally you do. If you catch a taxi and the taxi driver is very nice, takes you efficiently to your destination, you pay him, and often you leave a tip. I've been teaching for 34 years, and I've noticed that my students are always very pleased, very happy, very satisfied. Se dice más pleased aquí. My students are very pleased with my classes, but they never leave me a tip. I think in the future I'm going to put a little bowl in the center of the table and remind my students at the beginning of the class, if you like my class, you're free to leave a tip as a token of your appreciation. But in this case, normally when a service is well given, people leave an extra tip. In my case, no. Okay, creo que se ha olvidado de nosotros. I think he has forgotten us. Ni siquiera nos dio las gracias. He didn't even thank us. Ni siquiera sé cómo se llama él. I don't even know what his name is. Even. Todo el mundo fue a la fiesta, hasta la abuela, incluso la abuela. Everybody went to the party. Even my grandmother. Even. Interesting word. Even. Even is also the opposite of odd. Do you know what odd means? Odd means strange. Do you remember the movie, The Odd Couple? La pareja extraña. Okay. With Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau. Even and odd. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. These are even numbers. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, odd numbers. Okay, even numbers, odd numbers. In the streets of this city, on one side of the street you have odd numbers. Las direcciones de las calles, las señas. On the other side you have even numbers. Even numbers and odd numbers. Okay? Even also means the same level, even terrain, flat. This table is flat. It's very smooth. It's not hilly. It doesn't have hills. It doesn't have ups and downs. So it's even. And when you're talking about terreno nivelado, tierra muy plana, which is very even terrain. Even also means the sense of if you do something bad to me and I get angry and I decide to take revenge, vengarme un poquito, la revancha, my idea is to get even with you. So if you hit me in the nose and break my nose, then I could decide to get even with you. And I hit you in the jaw, la mandíbula, J-A-W, and I break your jaw. And you get angry with me. And I look at you and I say, huh? We're even. You broke my nose, I broke your jaw, we're even. Estamos en paz, you say in Spanish. We are in peace, okay? It's interesting because we have an expression in the United States, and in England they have a similar expression, slightly different. And it means, estamos en paz, Esteban. All right? And it says, we're even Steven. And in England they say even Stevens with an S, which is very strange. I heard that only about 2 or 3 years ago. I said, what? To my English friends, you say even Stevens? I said, yes. Ah, at least in Texas we say even Steven. So to get even with. And then even, of course, means incluso. Everybody was angry. Everybody was angry. Even el conserje. Even the custodian was angry. Everybody was angry. Even. And everybody can learn English. Even you. In my life, I've had approximately 5,000 students. 4,999 were perfectly capable, or have been perfectly capable of learning English. I've only met one person in my life in which I would put my hand in the fire that that person will never learn English en lo que le quede de vida for the rest of his life. And even in that case, even in that particular case, I may be wrong. That's my impression. But the other 4,999, including you, are perfectly capable of learning English. So you have no excuse. So even you can reach a good level of English. Even you. Okay? And I'll do my best to help you. That's my job. I'm here. They pay me to come here to teach you English. But I need your help. And I know that even you, yes, you, sitting there watching me now, can learn English. And with your help, you and me, we can make magic together. And your English will improve. You'll see. Believe me. I know what I'm saying. All right. I'll be back another day. I will never give up in my initiative, in my quest, in my endeavor to teach you English. So, see you very soon. Thank you very much.